Afghanistan sits where empires collided. Alexander, Genghis Khan, the British, the Soviets, the Americans, each tried to claim the crossroads. None succeeded. And yet, what do we really know about this land beyond headlines? Mountains so high they scrape the edge of breathable air. Turquoise lakes nested in desert cliffs. Cities older than empires, their mosques glittering with tile work that rivals anything in Persia. Valleys carved by rivers that fed the Silk Road. And through it all, a thread of endurance. Despite harsh conditions, life carries on here. Nomads with their herds, craftsmen in ancient bazaars, children playing in the shadow of minarets. What follows is a journey along ancient routes, from western gates where caravans once gathered, through high valleys where the air thins, to mountain passes that break armies, to a capital where past and present collide. This is Afghanistan beyond the headlines. Not a war zone frozen in conflict, but a land that has outlasted every empire that tried to claim it. Crossroads, not a tragedy, but a testament. And beneath it all, the land itself speaking. Herat sits where desert meets mountains, a city older than memory. Conquerors passed through: Alexander, Timur, Genghis Khan, and each left something behind. Yet what stands today is not rubble. It is civilization at its peak. The Friday Mosque rises at the city's heart, tiles the color of sky and lapis. Built in 1200 AD, destroyed, rebuilt by Timur in the 15th century, expanded across generations. 900 years of prayer have polished its stones smooth. The tilework is a masterwork. Turquoise, cobalt, gold leaf catching light. Geometric patterns so intricate they seem to move. Calligraphy flowing like water across arches and domes. Step into the courtyard. Minarets rise like needles against the desert horizon. The blue tiles glow under the sun, turning the complex into a beacon visible for miles. Pilgrims still come. Worshippers still bow. The mosque doesn't exist in the past. It breathes in the present. Around it, the old city spills through narrow lanes. Saffron, carpets, the smell of naan baking. Bazaars that have operated for centuries. Herat survived by connecting worlds. Silk from China, spices from India, ideas from Persia. The city was a rival to Damascus, to Baghdad, to Isfahan. It still carries that weight. Above it all, another monument to survival. The citadel rises on the north side, brick walls the color of dried blood. Massive ramparts tower over the city, casting long shadows across rooftops. Alexander the Great founded a fortress here in 330 BC. Mongols razed it. Timur rebuilt it. Each empire tried to claim the Crossroads. The citadel outlasted them all. From its walls, you can see why this location mattered. To the west, the desert stretches toward Persia. To the east, mountains rise. Any army, any caravan, any traveler heading between Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent passed through this valley. Geography made Herat a choke point. The fortress controlled the gate. Today, its towers still stand, ancient brick, weathered but unbroken. The citadel has been rebuilt, destroyed, rebuilt across 23 centuries. Yet it remains, a testament to stone and stubbornness. Beyond the fortress walls, the desert begins. Herat sits at the edge of dust and stone, where Iran's influence fades and Afghanistan's highlands rise. The city is a hinge between worlds. For centuries, caravans stopped here. They rested in caravanserais, traded goods, exchanged stories. Merchants from a dozen lands haggled in languages that mixed Persian, Turkic, and tongues now forgotten. The Silk Road didn't just carry silk. It carried ideas, religions, technologies. Herat absorbed them all. The city survived by remaining open, by adapting, by never closing its gates even when armies demanded it. From here, the Silk Road pushed east, climbing into the highlands. Following those routes, the land lifts. Desert gives way to high plateaus. And in the cliffs ahead, memory carved in stone. In the Bamiyan cliffs, two giant niches stare across the valley, empty now. For 15 centuries, Buddhas stood here. 53 meters, 35 meters, carved straight from the sandstone. Pilgrims traveled the Silk Road to see them. Monks who journeyed from India, from China. They came to witness what devotion could carve from stone. Then, in 2001, the Taliban brought explosives. What took generations to carve vanished in seconds. The statues shattered, fragments scattered across the valley floor. What the centuries had preserved, ideology destroyed in days. The niches remain, silent, hollow, immense. Shadows pool where faces once caught the sun. The alcoves are deep enough to hold houses, carved into cliffs that rise 100 meters. The scale is staggering, even in absence. The cliffs remember what stood here. The cliff face is riddled with caves, hundreds of them, carved into the stone like honeycomb. Buddhist monks lived here, meditated here, painted frescoes that still cling to walls and fragments. Reds and golds, figures in robes, geometric patterns that predate Islam by centuries. The caves functioned as a monastery complex, living quarters, meditation chambers, chapels connected by passages cut through rock. At its height, thousands of monks occupied these cliffs, their lives organized around prayer and study. When Islam came, the Buddhas were tolerated for centuries. The statues stood because they were art, because they were ancient. The caves continued. Shepherds sheltered here, refugees, travelers. The cliff doesn't discriminate. It simply holds space. Northeast, the plateau cracks open. In the highlands, lakes the color of gemstones. Band-e-Amir lies nested at 2,900 meters. 6 lakes in succession, each separated by natural dams of travertine, mineral deposits built by springs over millennia. The water is turquoise, not pale, not faded, electric. The first lake appears suddenly, a shock of color against brown cliffs. Then another, and another. Each a different shade, turquoise, cobalt, jade, depending on depth and mineral content. The dams are white, calcium carbonate stained rust red by iron. Locals say Hazrat Ali created these lakes with his sword, striking the earth to give water to a barren land. Either way, the lakes exist. In one of the driest regions on Earth, water the color of gemstones glitters under the sun. The contrast is absolute. Brown desert, blue water, white dams, rust-red stains. Further east, the plateau gives way to even higher ground. The land climbs toward the Wakhan Corridor, the roof of the world. The Wakhan Corridor is a geographic impossibility. A finger of land, no wider than 15 kilometers, squeezed between the Pamir and Hindu Kush. Peaks rise above 7,000 meters, white and sharp. The air is thin. Villages appear like mirages, stone houses clustered against wind, built low to resist storms that scour these heights for months. Yaks graze on slopes that seem vertical. The Panj River marks the border with Tajikistan, cutting through the valley, milky with glacial silt. On both sides, mountains press close, leaving only a narrow corridor of habitable ground. Marco Polo passed through here in the 13th century, following trade routes that are now barely paths. He wrote about the altitude, the cold, the sheep with curved horns that locals later named after him. The route he traveled still exists, but few use it. The Wakhan is the end of the road, the place where the Silk Road ran out of breath. Today, supplies arrive by donkey or not at all. Winters lock the corridor for months. Snow closes passes, isolates villages, turns the valley into a prison of white. Families survive on what they stored, what they preserved, what their animals can provide. This is the end of connection, the place where the crossroads finally stops. Above the valley, the Pamirs rise, the roof of the world. Not metaphor, geography. Peaks push above 7,000 meters. Glaciers locked between ridges that scrape sky. This is where continents collide. India driving into Asia, forcing rock upward. The collision continues. The mountains grow, millimeters each year, imperceptible but relentless. The scale is incomprehensible. From above, even the valleys look vertical. Glaciers spill down slopes, carving valleys that will take millennia to complete. Rivers born here feed the Amu Darya, the Indus, the Tarim Basin. Water from these glaciers reaches 3 seas. Armies have tried to cross these ranges. Most failed. Alexander turned back. The Mongols found passes, but even they struggled. The Soviets built roads that avalanches reclaim each winter. This is nature as absolute authority. The mountains don't care about armies, about borders, about human ambition. They simply exist, indifferent and immense. In the highest reaches, Kyrgyz nomads still move with the seasons. Yurts rise from stone, felt walls stretched over wooden frames. Smoke escapes through roof holes. Inside, families sleep on carpets, insulated against cold that would kill in hours. Yaks provide everything: milk, meat, wool, transport. A life stripped to essentials, passed down for centuries. Descending from the roof, the land opens. Returning west along the northern corridor, the mountains give way to plains. And there, a city of light. Mazar-i-Sharif rises from the northern plains, and at its heart burns the blue mosque. Not sky blue, not pale, cobalt, turquoise, lapis. The shrine is dedicated to Hazrat Ali, cousin of the Prophet Muhammad. Some believe he is buried here, others dispute it. The faithful come regardless. The mosque was built in the 15th century, destroyed, rebuilt, expanded across generations. The tile work rivals anything in Samarkand or Isfahan. Geometric patterns so intricate they seem to move. Calligraphy flowing like water across walls and domes. Each tile was cut by hand, fitted into place. part of a design that took decades to complete. White doves circle the courtyard. Pilgrims touch the walls, their hands seeking blessing from stone. The blue tiles absorb light and throw it back, turning the complex into a beacon visible for miles across the flatlands. This is not architecture frozen in time. It is faith made visible, prayer made permanent. The city takes its name from the shrine, Mazar-i-Sharif, the noble shrine. For centuries, pilgrims have traveled here, following routes that cross deserts and mountains. The mosque is their destination, their proof, the place where devotion becomes geography. Around the shrine, the city sprawls. Markets, schools, tree-lined streets, life organized around the blue center. Mazar exists because of what lies beneath those tiles. Remove the shrine, and the city loses its reason. But the shrine remains. The tiles glow. The doves return. Just beyond the city, another monument stands. Or rather, remains. Balkh, the mother of cities. Greeks called it Bactra. For 3,000 years, this was a center of the world, capital of Bactria, jewel of the Silk Road. Zoroaster may have taught here. Rumi was born here in the 13th century, before his family fled west, before he became the voice Sufis still recite. Then Genghis Khan arrived, 1220 AD. He razed Balkh so thoroughly that travelers reported they couldn't tell where streets had been. The mother of cities became a field of rubble. An example, a warning. Today, mud brick walls rise from the plain, 30 feet high in places, collapsed to rubble in others. Ancient gates frame empty air. Mounds cover what were once palaces, temples, libraries. Archaeologists have mapped the ghost city beneath. Streets, cisterns, foundations. But digging is slow. The mother of cities sleeps under centuries of dust. Locals know what stood here, what Genghis Khan erased. From the northern plains, the journey turns south. Ahead, the mountain spine that defines Afghanistan. The Hindu Kush cuts Afghanistan in half. Not metaphor, Geography. 800 kilometers of rock, peaks climbing to 7,000 meters. Some say the name means Hindu killer, a reference to the caravans that froze crossing from India centuries ago. Others dispute the translation. Either way, the mountains earned their reputation. The Hindu Kush shaped everything: climate, trade, war. Rain falls on the northern slopes, leaving the south arid. Rivers born in these peaks water 3 countries. Passes are few, narrow, unforgiving. Armies have tried to cross these ridges for millennia. Alexander lost soldiers to cold and altitude. The British lost entire columns. The Soviets lost helicopters, their rotors struggling in air too thin to provide lift. The mountains don't care about armies. They simply resist. Glaciers cling to the highest peaks, rivers of ice that move inches per year. In summer, meltwater carves gorges. In winter, snow buries passes, sealing valleys for months. The Hindu Kush doesn't negotiate. It dominates. One pass cuts through. Barely. The Salong Pass rises to 3,878 meters, a serpentine road carved into stone, switchbacks that seem impossible. The tunnel beneath was finished in 1964, highest of its kind at the time. Soviet engineers blasted through rock, creating a link between north and south that didn't require crossing exposed ridges. For decades, every supply truck, every army, every traveler heading between northern plains and Kabul passed through here. The pass became a choke point, strategic in every conflict. Avalanches have buried convoys. Rock slides close the road for days. The tunnel floods when snowmelt overwhelms drainage. But it remains the only way through, the spine's only breach. Below the pass, a valley opens, green against stone. The Panjshir Valley cuts northeast from the Hindu Kush, a ribbon of green between mountain walls. The name means Valley of 5 Lions, though no one agrees what the lions represent. Terraces climb the slopes, emerald bright, fed by the Panjshir River that winds through the valley floor. Poplars line the fields. Irrigation channels built centuries ago still carry water to crops. The valley is 100 kilometers long, narrow enough that mountains press in on both sides. Geography made it a fortress. The valley is narrow, mountains pressing in. The Soviets tried to take it 9 times. They failed. The Taliban tried. They failed. The valley doesn't surrender. It holds. The people here know every slope, every pass, every cave. They've defended these terraces for generations. From the valley, one road descends toward the capital, toward the crossroads where everything converges. Kabul sits in a valley, ringed by mountains. The city has been here for 3,500 years, a crossroads where routes from Persia, Central Asia, India, and China converged. Today, more than 4 million people live in this bowl of dust and stone. Soviet-era blocks stand beside old city quarters. New construction rises where ruins were cleared. Above it all, the mountains watch. Hindu Kush foothills pressing close, snow-capped peaks visible on clear days. The city spreads across the valley floor, chaotic and dense. Roads wind between neighborhoods built without plans. Electricity is unreliable. Water comes from wells or trucks. Yet the city doesn't stop. It adapts. Kabul has been destroyed and rebuilt more times than records can count. It endures, not because it's invincible, but because it doesn't pause. In the old city, the bazaars pulse. Narrow lanes wind between shops, carpet sellers, spice merchants, coppersmiths hammering pots. The smell of naan baking, saffron and cardamom in open sacks, fabric hanging from doorways, colors faded by sun. Men drink tea on stoops, vendors call prices. A boy pushes a cart stacked with pomegranates. Motorbikes weave through crowds, horns blaring. On the city's edge, Darul Aman Palace stands hollow. Built in the 1920s to house Afghanistan's parliament. European in style, ambitious in vision. A declaration that Afghanistan would modernize, would join the world as equals. Civil war left it gutted. For decades, it was a shell. Windows blown out, roof collapsed, walls pockmarked with bullet holes. A monument to what ambition looks like when it meets violence. Now, slowly, restoration begins. Scaffolding climbs the facade. Workers repair what decades destroyed. The palace isn't a ruin anymore. It's a work in progress. From the hills above, Kabul spreads across the valley. Roads wind between blocks. Smoke rises from cook fires. The mountains ring the city, close enough to feel their weight. This is the Crossroads, where routes met, where empires collided, where life continues despite everything. The city doesn't claim invincibility. It simply refuses to stop. And in that refusal, it survives. From western gates where caravans gathered, through valleys where air thins, across mountains that break empires, to a capital where everything converges. Not a war zone, not a ruin, a crossroads, ancient and active. The mosques still stand, their tiles catching sun. Bazaars still trade, feeding families one transaction at a time. Glaciers feed rivers that water 3 countries. And in Kabul, a boy pushes a cart through lanes unchanged for centuries. The crossroads remains. The land endures. And life continues. Not because peace arrived, but because stopping was never an option.